Jailhouse Wiretap audio has leaked, and it's exposing exactly why rapper Bricc Baby's life might be in serious danger right now. We're talking about real threats, real enemies, and some very heated street politics. And get this, Charleston White tried to warn him before it all blew up, so that makes you wonder, was Bricc Baby caught slipping?
I remember I saw an interview on No Jumper that Bricc Baby said when I went to jail that it was the game guards. The game guard finally got me. From all that talking, dissing street gang member. Bricc Baby, if you ever see this interview, look like the Crip guard got y'all.
At this point, it's safe to say Bricc is in way deeper trouble than we originally thought. First, it was the federal charges. Bricc and a few other boys picked up some heavy-duty heat from the feds not too long ago.
So obviously the big, gigantic news that I probably should have started with is the fact that the Rolling 60 RICO came down on a lot of people that only a couple of people that we have relationships with, but you and I obviously both friends with Bricc Baby.
And then came the fact that he was denied bail over concerns that he might be involved in violence or even tampering with witnesses, and that's dead serious.
So Bricc Baby and Loose Cannon had their bail denied in federal court today.
But it gets even messier. We also have a strong reason to believe that good old Bricc might have been talking with the boys in the blue, because Al Prophet and a couple of others are now saying that the feds got Bricc on a jailhouse wiretap.
He had a wiretap on his phone talking about guns. I didn't think he was going to get out. Him and Loose Cannon were saying they thought they were going to get out. Oh, I didn't think they were.
Now, while we haven't seen a full transcript or official release yet, people close to the situation are strongly suggesting that recorded jail calls are being used in this investigation. And if Brick's voice is on any of those tapes, it could explain why the heat around him has intensified real quick. One of the very first people who gave us a warning about Bricc was none other than Charleston White. Make no mistake, he's been loud about this.
By the way, when Bricc Baby put that $10,000 on his head, I didn't have to say nothing. The district attorney's office immediately sent that video to the California Bureau of Investigation. They immediately sent that I didn't have to say nothing. I didn't have to call no Bricc Baby, put his own self into this FBI.
Charleston's been claiming for weeks that a big federal sweep was coming. As you heard him say it, the feds have been building cases and posting federal cards on people's doors in Brick's circle. Charleston knew folks would be singing, and we mean a lot. And we already know what happens when people start flipping. Paranoia, retaliation, and some real street politics start playing out behind bars and outside. He also hinted that Bricc might be seen as a liability. He even called out his loose lips. So if people think Bricc is cooperating, whether it's true or not, that alone could make him a target. It's the kind of situation where just being suspected of snitching can get you hurt. So even if we don't have hard proof yet of Brick's voice on those wiretaps, the context is loud and clear. There's federal pressure, possible informants, jailhouse recordings in play, and Bricc Baby is smack in the middle of it. And based on what Charleston's been saying, this ain't just legal trouble, it's life-threatening. Just think about it. Brick's bond request was denied because of how many cases he had and how he kept catching gun charges while already out on probation. And there was a wiretap of him talking about guns. And then Bricc just had to flash a gun literally one day before his arrest, and he had it on him when they arrested him. Not to mention, we had sources claiming Bricc was involved in a fight in jail, but some say that could be cap.
But I don't know, now people are saying that they caught the fade and that Loose put tips on him and kicked him out the damn cell.
Regardless of what really went down behind bars, for those like Bricc who grew up around such tough circumstances, it ain't even safe. Currently, Bricc is still in jail, but that ain't new for him, as he's done time before. However, the fact that the feds decided to deny him bond does say that this time around, they're serious, and it could be a very long time before we see Bricc walk out of the joint. The government is definitely putting some extra weight on this case. And that's not even inappropriate. That's how the system works. If someone like Big U, who's been publicly positioned as a community leader, gets donations, guards football games, and appears on the news, but then gets accused of murder and more, they're gonna try to make an example. But just because Bricc is locked up, don't mean he ain't give us his 2 cents. He left a message through a phone call, and it felt like he's finally realizing who's really riding for him and who's just been using him for clout. In his call, Bricc Baby said,
"No good deed go unpunished. I seen a man give his all to his wife and his kids before and still get treated like a woman."
That sounds like he's talking about himself, like he's saying he did everything for people around him and still got betrayed. Then he added, if it ain't blood, it don't love nothing, which clearly means he feels like the people he considered close, maybe even family, turned their backs on him the minute things got tough. And then the real shade came when he started talking about how folks keep pushing content with his name, even now that he's locked up. Sounds like a straight shot at No Jumper. He was a big part of that platform, doing interviews, running shows, being a presence, and now they're not really helping out, and in fact, they just moved right on without him. Not only that, people like Whack 100 and other connected names have been getting brought up in conversations surrounding his case, and let's just say Bricc is not blind to that. It sounds like he's hurt, but he's also watching closely and taking notes. But the most chilling part of that call was when Bricc Baby said,
Gang went against a soldier for a rodent that touched a young woman.
he's clearly calling somebody a rat, and not just any rat, but someone who harmed a young woman. That's a serious accusation, and Brick's basically saying the people around him chose to side with that person over him, someone who kept it real and held it down. We might be looking at a story of betrayal, and it's making people look twice at who's really behind the scenes pulling strings. So Brick's federal situation is deep, but what's hitting even harder is the emotional and social side of it. He feels used, abandoned, and he's calling it like he sees it. Whether it's Adam 22, Whack 100, or some other folks behind the scenes, he's making it clear. When the lights turn off, the loyalty fades real quick. And it's interesting that Bricc would say these things because Charleston been talking about how this might come for him for years now, but he never had the ears to listen. In fact, the whole relationship between Bricc and Charleston has been openly hostile for years, even before any recent legal situations came into play.
Well, you mentioned Charleston White. Since our last interview, I think you guys even there was a video of you recording him in a club, or was it you, or you got the video?
Yeah.
Somebody else recorded him in the club.
Yeah, one of my boys. Yeah, they was on this plan. Yeah, ain't worried about Charleston White.
So the whole mess between Bricc Baby and Charleston has been simmering for a minute. It all kicked off after Charleston said some wild stuff about Nipsey Hussle. And y'all know Nipsey was someone Bricc was tight with. That obviously didn't sit right with Bricc, so he clapped back real quick. He had some strong words for Charleston, but later on, he made it clear that he wasn't really threatening the man. Still, the drama only escalated from there. They both kept throwing shots, online in interviews, and Charleston, being Charleston, kept poking the bear. Bricc Baby's touched on the beef in a few interviews, saying the internet and fans made things way worse than they had to be. At one point, he even joked about putting $10,000 on Charleston's head, but then said it was all cap, and folks took it way too seriously. Meanwhile, Charleston was out here talking about how he snitched on Bricc Baby and even hinted that he helped get him jammed up with the feds. Now, Bricc wasn't getting that slide. He's called Charleston a whole hypocrite, saying the man acts like he's all about the community, but turns around and stirs up drama for views. He's basically saying Charleston's no activist. He's an instigator who thrives off conflict and controversy.
You're tricking the world to believe that you're for the community, and the stuff that's going on in Chicago is like outright inhumane, and it is, but the wrong voice though. Like, if Chicago, all over the world, he thinks that gangbanging is this, is that, and that.
And get this, Bricc even claimed he pulled up to Texas during the height of their beef. Like, not just talking tough online, he was ready to see Charleston in real life. But again, Bricc keeps saying he never really wanted to hurt him. It was just a lot of heated talk and internet energy. What is clear as day is that now Bricc and a couple of other people are looking down the barrel, and it all started with Big U. If you've been anywhere near LA street culture or hip-hop in the past few decades, then you already know Big U has been a major figure. He used to be closely tied to Nipsey and was considered a power player in the streets and behind the scenes. But now he's in the hot seat big time, facing some very serious federal charges that paint a wild picture. According to the feds, Big U was running a whole mafia-style criminal organization connected to the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips. And when we say the charges are deep, we mean deep. They're accusing him of racketeering under the RICO Act, which is already serious, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. This Big U enterprise was allegedly involved in extortion, human robbery, fraud, like wire fraud, bank fraud, tax evasion, and even theft of government money. One of the most disturbing allegations came in January 2021 when Big U lured Rayshawn Williams, who was signed to Big U's unique music label, to Las Vegas under the pretense of recording music. But instead of a studio session, it turned into a setup. Rayshawn dissed Big U in a track, and feds say Big U retaliated by shooting him and dumping his body in the desert. But it doesn't stop there. He's also accused of scamming big names, including athletes like Shaquille O'Neal, by asking for charity donations and then pocketing the money. Oh, and he allegedly submitted fake COVID-19 relief claims to get extra cash, lying about his label's finances. Plus, his nonprofit Developing Options, which was supposed to help steer youth away from gang life, is now being called a front for criminal activity and embezzlement. In March 2025, Big U was arrested along with 18 others allegedly tied to the Rollin 60s. He showed up in a Los Angeles courtroom and pleaded not guilty to all 43 federal charges. Right now, he's being held in federal custody while everything plays out. And yes, if convicted, he could be facing life in prison. Publicly, Big U is denying everything. He's saying this is all a big setup and that he's being targeted for being a black man trying to uplift his community. His quote, "I ain't been nothing but a help to our community, but I guess it is what it is." Now let's talk about Bricc Baby and how he ties into all this. Brick's situation is connected to what the feds are calling Operation Drawdown, a massive sweep targeting the Rollin 60s crew. Bricc was hit in the same wave that charged 10 members with crimes like racketeering conspiracy, trafficking, and gun-related offenses. Even though his name isn't listed as a top leader, his arrest suggests the authorities think he was more than just a background character. Public documents haven't laid out his exact charges yet, but since the bigger indictment involves extortion and weapons, and considering his past, like that 2017 armed robbery arrest, the feds clearly saw enough to include him. Here's where it gets even messier. Bricc and Luce used to pull up to No Jumper like all the time, but at one point, Luce made some very bold claims about Big U, possibly knowing something about Nipsey Hussle's death. And that ended up drawing attention from the feds. So the podcast itself became a piece of the puzzle for investigators. Just a few months back, federal agents pulled up to Adam's Los Angeles home trying to serve him a subpoena. But according to reports, his wife answered the door and told them he wasn't home.
Now, the feds did actually visit you.
Yep.
And what happened?
So I was playing poker at my house one day, and my girl actually intercepted the person ringing my buzzer outside. I didn't see it. She told him that I wasn't home. Basically, they wanted to serve me with a subpoena. Now, when I hear that, I get nervous. I call my lawyer. I'm like, hey, can you guys call this guy and figure out exactly what's going on with this?
Now, why were the feds even at Adam's door in the first place? Well, they wanted a specific piece of evidence, a cease and desist letter that Big U's team had sent to the No Jumper podcast. And it all stemmed from that wild moment when Luce claimed Big U had advanced knowledge of Nipsey back in 2019. Once the FBI caught wind of that episode and the letter, they came sniffing around. But Adam wasn't trying to deal with them directly. He got a lawyer involved and stayed quiet. At this point, it looks like they're more interested in the podcast content than in Adam himself doing anything criminal. He's not being charged with anything, for now. Now this wouldn't be a real internet scandal without Whack 100 inserting himself. He popped off claiming Adam had actually been arrested by federal agents Whack was out here talking about. They came and got him this morning, trying to get him down there so Adam don't be doing no telling. But that claim was totally unverified. Adam hit back quickly saying, nah, he was not arrested, just questioned. And in true Adam fashion, he joked about it, saying he was wearing his red Nike tech suit during the whole FBI interaction, and even teased that he'd break it all down on a future podcast. That man stays on brand. But here's where things get a little darker. The feds didn't just care about that one Luce episode. They've been reviewing multiple No Jumper episodes, especially ones where Bricc and Luce talked about gang life, gun deals, and Big U. The most damaging content were Luce's allegations about Nipsey's death, and Brick's casual talk about firearms and the streets. That content allegedly played a role in helping the feds build parts of their case. Bricc Baby, for his part, is now facing federal gun charges tied to interstate trafficking. And it's being reported that some of what he said on No Jumper was actually used as evidence. Y'all, these interviews are not just content. They're turning into courtroom receipts. Zooming out a bit, all this legal drama is hitting while No Jumper is already struggling. Everyone knows Adam made a controversial pivot, from covering hip-hop and street culture to adult content and political hot takes. And let's just say, the fan base didn't exactly stick around for that. On top of that, Adam admitted he blew a bag during the past couple of years, buying a $4 million office and spending big when money was flowing. Now, the guys are in a financial hole. But what do you think about Brick's fate? Do you think there's still hope for him to walk out a free man? Let us know about it.